Hello, Denim Heads. This is David from the Sons of Selvedge podcast with a 5x1 review where I tell you 5 things you want to know about one rugged good. And today we are looking at the John Lofgren Wabash Engineer boots. So, point number one, the leather. This is a Shinki Hikaku Horsebutt leather. It is a T-core leather, so right now it's black, but these will evolve to wear away the black finish and show the brown under the leather over time. You can even kind of see, as you look inside of it, the kind of underlayer that's not black all the way through. Lots of imperfections, lots of little kind of subtleties that are from the horse's hide and how the leather was manufactured. But I'm not going to go much into detail in this particular video. I think the leather is best described in a separate video I did on the M43 service shoes also from Lofgren in the same leather. So point number two is the fit. This is my third pair. I'm a 11 and a half from heel to arch, and 10 and a half from heel to toe on a Brannock. I've got what's called a Roman foot, so I've got sort of short, stumpy toes, kind of like that. So I'm buying shoes for my arch length. My first pair was an 11 in Cremexel leather. That's half down from Brannock, which is their advice. I found them really hard to get on, and I even had to do like the trick where you put a plastic bag in the boot and like really kind of yank them on basically. And once they were on, the Cremexel leather didn't feel all that supportive. It felt too soft and too giving. So I didn't really love the feel of the 11s in Cremexel. Second, I had a pair of 10 and a half in the black Shinki. They were pretty fantastic throughout the foot, except the side of my big toe and my pinky toe were hitting onto the structured toe cap. So not the soft part of the leather that wants to give, but the hard part of the leather that's reinforced that's not going to give. So I basically couldn't wear 10 and a half even if I wanted to because it was just kind of squashing on the ends. So I had to sell those. Now I'm on my third pair. These are a size 11, which is one half down from my Brannock. Again, these are in the Shinki Horsebutt, so not Cremexel. And these feel just right for me. I don't need the plastic bag trick to put them on. I just have to kind of give it a little bit of oomph, and then eventually they kind of go into the boot. They feel great in the toe box. Limited heel slip, of course, there's not zero heel slip, but I think that might be due to something specific about the pattern for these boots that I read online. I think I would agree with it, and that's that the size of the instep is quite tall vertically. So I feel like you've got a lot of room in these up and down. And that's going to work great for people with really high arches, but people with low arches, that might be a bit too kind of like your foot might not be touching the top, and that might be a bit weird. So worth focusing on that part of the boot when you do try them on. I've got a little bit of wiggle room vertically, but it feels like it's the right balance of things I need to make these fit. So third point I want to talk about is some of the Shinki specific design details. So normally the Wabash has a storm welt, which basically kind of like comes up a portion of the boot. So you see less of the boot, which kind of makes it look a little bit more low profile, but also less dressy. So these, you just have a classic flat welt. It is Goodyear welted, 270 degrees. So the welts kind of go for this much of the boot. That gives it a bit of a cleaner look, a bit of a dressier look. Also, the whole bottom of the shoe is black. Whereas on the Cremexel Wabash, even the black ones have a brown sole and a kind of, I think it's a tan welt. So it's like your boot's kind of black and then it changes to tan and brown. Whereas these, I much prefer the kind of murdered out solid black colorway. One thing that this does mean though with this particular design is the toe does feel a little bit more bulbous, a little bit taller than it does on the Cremexel pair, but I do think the kind of top-down profile is pretty clean on these. I mean, I don't think there's anything I would say that makes them feel like they're like a kind of like a raised raised last or anything like that. A sprung last, I think is what it's called. They do feel really clean. Next point I'll talk about is around the evolution of these boots. So because of this toe structure, there is no toe collapse. They're going to stay this way in the front of the boot over time. These have broken in pretty well. I've probably worn them at least 2 months worth, 60 wears, give or take. But they don't really change that much. I mean, The shaft is starting to collapse just a little bit. The getting a little bit of rolls in the instep and arch. But again, these boots seem like they kind of like stay pretty consistent look wise. And I've also seen some of like Jake Almost Vintage Styles pairs that he's had for many years, and they don't really change all that much. So I think if you buy these, no, they're not going to be like a boot that feels like it looks a little bit different every time you wear it. It's going to kind of stay consistent, which is a pro. Um, and then maybe the one last thing I'll flag, which is not a big deal, but I just wanted to make sure I mention it. And that's that the heel pad in one of these guys is starting to come unglued. So kind of on this end on the front. Maybe that's because it's a little bit challenging to get them in and out. It's actually my left pair. My left instep is higher. And so maybe just kind of pulling that foot out, pushing that foot in, I'm not quite sure. But one way or the other, the heel pad is coming slightly unglued, which means I probably at some point will need to get them repaired. Probably an easy fix. I assume my local cobbler can do it, but I might email Lofgren just to ask. But yeah, anyways, that's a 5x1. John Lofgren Wabash boots. Black Shinki Horsebutt. Really nice leather, really nice boot. And I hope you enjoy it.